A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum. Hello and welcome to today's presentation. I'm Kashif Shahzada, your host, and the topic that I will be discussing today is women's right in the Quran. Before I go on to the subject, I have a few housekeeping announcements to make. I'm going to speak on the topic for roughly an hour or so, hope less than an hour. And after my presentation, we can take questions from the members of audience, and we also have some guest speakers here. And later on, we are going to take some comments and have a discussion from the people there. We hope to be finished by, say, under an hour and a half, 1 hour and 30 minutes or so. So I request people to please be considerate of the time we have at our disposal. The presentation that I'm going to make will be based on Islam's holy book, the Quran. This is the Quran that I hold in my hand. I request all of you to make notes, to have a pen and paper with you and make notes. I will also try to give the references of the Quranic verses on the screen. You can also have a look at that. And I encourage you to make notes. And if any questions come to mind, then ask those questions at the end of the presentation. Before my presentation, I have a guest speaker, Mr. HANIF, who is joining us from Middlesbrough. He would be making a short presentation on women's rights from a British Muslim perspective. He's a senior member of the British Muslim community, and he has been involved with interfaith work. He has been a community worker, and he has also worked with various organizations that help members of the community, like the British. You have the various social organizations there. He can tell a bit more about that. So without any further delay, I would like to invite Brother Khan Hanif to please come to the mic, introduce himself briefly, and he has about 10 minutes or so to discuss the problem of women's rights. What are the problems in his experience that British Muslim women face while he's living in Britain? He also has obviously an experience in Pakistan, and he can speak from that context as well. So I encourage everyone to pay careful attention to his knowledge and experience on the subject. I hope my voice is audible. If my voice is not audible, please send me a comment, post a comment if you need an adjustment with your mic. Another housekeeping thing that we need to bear in mind is that if you have got earphones, oh my God, I don't have my earphones with me. Let me just go and get my earphones. I encourage all of you to have headphones or earphones. Otherwise, there is a disturbance, the sound that comes from your computer's mic, it can mix with the speakers and there can be a distortion. So have your earphones on and then speak onto the mic. So I'll quickly get my earphones, and without further delay, I'd request Brother Khan Hanif to come to the mic and to apprise us of the problems that various British Muslim women face in his experience as a community leader and as a community worker. So, Brother Khan Hanif, over to you.
Alaikum, Brother Kashif. It's always pleasure meeting you and talking to you. It always increases my knowledge because of the discussions we had in past. So I'm privileged to be in your company. Now, simply let me introduce myself. I am 66-year-old. I lived in the UK more than 50 years. I am originally from Azad Kashmir, which we call occupied, the free Kashmir, as opposed to Indian occupied. So we are on the side of the Pakistan administered Azad Kashmir. Uh, so I've uh, only lived in Pakistan until about age 13, and then I moved up here. I worked with the Citizens Advice Bureau for 29 years, 23 years of which I worked as a paid worker and 6 years as a voluntary worker, dealing with all sorts of issues with the ethnic minorities in particular. My job description was to basically give people as much information about their rights and how to claim benefits, disabilities, because there's a high proportion of ethnic minorities as opposed to the indigenous community. Nearly one third of them have some sort of illnesses or diseases or problems, health related problems. So I've actually given them advice on benefits, on employment rights, on their marriages, especially women coming to me because of the lack of advice where they can approach or go. So they came to me, and I actually either help them as much as we could or refer them to other agencies. So, in that respect, I have a vast knowledge of ethnic minorities communities, including the issues, the problems that they're facing. And now, since this is a third or fourth generation living in the UK, therefore, they have different sort of issues which when I arrived faced. So it's evolving situation. Things are changing very, very quickly. Now let me say that women's in this country don't have those issues which in particularly in Pakistan or Islamic countries have. When it comes to um, if a parents passed away, and they will have equal share from their parents, whether they've made a will or not. And if somebody made a Islamic inverted commas will, they would still be able to go to the court, and court would give them their right. So we have problems, particularly with the girls who are very religiously inclined, or their parents are very, very religious, who are married off when they are teenagers. And particularly, this is more prevalent in Ali Hadith, community, Muslims, who are basically linked with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So, I mean, I've myself witnessed few marriages, underage marriages. Under the English law, you have to be age 16 to get married with the consent of your parents, or age 18 you can marry whoever you want. However, those marriages were contracted and they are illegal, and that poses problems should there be any issues, or the marriage breaks down, or there are difficulties because your rights are not protected under English law. You are not classed as a married couple in the true sense of the description. So then they have a problems, and particularly girls, those who entered these marriages had issues. Other than that, when they go to school, colleges, and so on and so forth, they meet counterparts. The community is a multi cultural, multi-linguist, and multi-religious society, very tolerant, comparatively very, very tolerant. So they see a different, um, when they are home, they see a different kind of attitude, different kind of upbringing. However, as they enter school, and mix with other communities, they are different. They feel that they are um, they can see, because most of them wearing hijab, and that also makes them stand out. See, so they have those problems, but more and more it's becoming acceptable, because is the nature of the British people. They are more tolerant of other religions. So those girls, when they reach the age of marriage, pa- parents try to put or exert some pressure on them. And now, because there are laws that you can't take somebody abroad and marry them off, I had come up with a few people who rung me from here, their friends, that my friend has been taken away. And similarly, I've received phone calls from Pakistan, even though when I finished working with Citizen Advice Bureau 3 years ago. But still, people ring me for a basic advice, which I tell them that I can only direct you towards the right person or that agency. But I always tell them their rights, um, what I know, and give them for expert advice, where to go and who to approach. So those particular issues are with the Asian Asian girl in particular, because, as you are probably aware, that in Tunisia, 3 years ago in September 2017, is the only country in the world, a Muslim country, which permitted marriages with non-Muslims. You can be a Christian, Jew, whoever. The law has been uh, upgraded or changed, so you can get married there. And I think there are increased number of people are struggling to marry their daughters here, because before it used to be a family. You're marrying your cousins and so on and so forth, and those, particularly those marriages, posed great deal of issues between the families, because majority of the boys were coming from abroad, from Pakistan, Bangladesh, or India, and they had sort of um, attitude, a Pakistani or the non-British attitude. So therefore, the marriages, um, with time, start failing, and that caused so many problems of a marriage. Um, Once you are divorced, then it's very, very difficult for you to remarry. And so people are now, parents are more sort of understanding that we will only allow those marriages when girls and boys are meet, and these are the immigration conditions as well. So immigration, you have to be employment, for some reasonable time. If you are calling somebody from abroad, a girl or boy, you have to have, I think, more than 16,500 pound income, which not many people are earning. Those who are in universities, they tend not to go and marry there. They will find their partner in colleges or universities. So we're talking about those who are not well educated, and they are persuaded by family, friends, and uncles and aunts to get married. Now, this is causing so many problems because boys usually go to Pakistan or abroad and get married very easily, whereas for a girl, you have to be employed, because the proportion of ethnic minorities, especially from a Pakistani background, their proportion of employment is very, very low compared to boys. So that causes a hurdle for them. And marriage doesn't last that long. The marriages are not very, very successful compared to a few years ago, because the attitude of a male coming from misogynist attitude they have, the male domineering attitude, and that state of mind actually is not acceptable. The girls up here, they are not dependent financially on them, so they can't use this trick in Pakistan or Bangladesh or India. The woman is under thumb and whatever, they say they have to do it. Here, basically, women, everybody has if you even don't work, you have access to welfare. You have all the basic needs met by the state. So therefore, parents don't put as much pressure. Tendency is now on girls to find their partners, and there are three kinds of um, categories that I've just I put them in. One, well-off communities, well-educated girls, they don't have this problem of financially um, sponsoring somebody. However, they tend to be lesser among them because they go to universities, colleges, and they mix with male, female, and everything. However, those who are not well educated, or they just leave school, and the parents are worried that we don't want our daughters to, or particularly the problem is that we don't treat uh, uh, women and men, boys and girls equally. Girls, if they go out and make friends, or if they go and stay out after 8 o'clock or whatever time, they are not permitted. Whereas men, boys, they can do and do whatever. And this a different sort of attitudes, in a gender, um, um, inequality, actually put a lot of strain on parents now, and girls feel that why aren't we treated just the same? So their problem. I know so many people. They approach me, and they have often 4 or 3 or daughters, and they are now past the marriage. In a way, sell by date according to them, because they are over 25, 30, 35. And that particularly now is in, people are thinking, the families, they're not going to marry them off to their cousins, because a lot of girls now dismiss this close blood related marriages. And also they had so many problems. Boys arrived here, and they weren't compatible, and the marriages start broken. Now, the other problem it causes to young girls is when they are young mothers, that if marriage breaks, then if they remarry somebody, or if they stay single, they they won't allow access to fathers, even though the father has been contributing and wants to keep in touch with the girls. You see, we have this: once you are estranged from your husband or you are divorced, your relationship is basically completely gone off the truck. You don't mix, and that also causes psychological problems on families, fathers, mostly fathers, and also some of them are girls, because usually under the English law, uh, um, the children are given to mother in her custody. So therefore, it's the male divorcees who are divorced that they suffer a problem. And I actually um, met so many people with this issue, and they don't have um, role models in front of them. Whereas other communities here, they they are resolving the issues of marriage, and they have mosques or other in a way every 6 months or every month or so they have some sort of exhibition or marriage type of a gathering. So they permit those people to meet families, girls, boys, and so on, and they can actually progress their relationship. However, in this area, and particularly in my area here, we are not a very big a community comparatively with Birmingham, London, Manchester, and so on and so forth, or Bradford for that matter. And they have marriage bureaus. They have so many people who help you out with marriages. Now, the biggest problem now, I think, faced by our children is this, that they can't find a suitor, they can't find match. It's very difficult because you don't have to get married to live a life, independent life. So that incentive or that pressure in abroad is no more. So now more and more girls and boys are choosing staying single, um, and I think this is now increasing in number. I see people. We as a parents, we talk to each other, and I see that they are now resigned or accepting that is a new change is coming, and not necessarily every girl is going to get married. So you can ask me questions now if you want any particular issue, so I can answer your issues. Hello.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Brother Khan Hanif, for your presentation. You have highlighted a lot of problems that the British Muslim community is facing. Indeed, these are very important areas to look into. And your experience, the wealth of experience that you have, the knowledge that you have shared is very important for the community to develop plans and strategies for the future. If there are any questions for Mr. Khan Hanif from those who are present here, then may I request people to please come to the mic. Claire, do you have any questions you would like to ask Mr. Khan Hanif?
Well, only comments really, just because what Mr. Khan has described it really applies to, well, non-Muslims. The government has chosen to make it as hard as possible for those who want to become married parents to become married parents. It's giving us all kinds of substitutes. Would you like a civil partnership? Would you like a gay marriage? Would you like to live together until you get tired of each other? All these substitutes are made available and has been normalized by the culture. So if it is the case that people are happy to enjoy purely recreational sex, then why would they want to marry? Because it's so full of, well, responsibilities, financial and legal, and people are not feeling very secure in their occupation. So I suppose that would tend to discourage marriage. And this is a culture that is being spread all around the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree with you. The culture basically doesn't encourage you to get married. And why should? It's not a nanny state. Why should a government encourage marriages? They happen to be secular. So therefore, I don't think that we can blame the government. What I can only emphasize is that um, if we do care about our religious sensitivities, and we want to keep our children stick to their religion, then I think it's the community at large. They should come up with a proposal. They should make plans and to have facilities facilitate these boys and girls meeting, because it's not abroad. Here we go out and we meet each other. As I said, the girls, they have a less opportunity meeting boys here because of the restriction imposed by parents. However, I think that parents, the mosques, the centers, the Pakistani or whichever community you belong to, they should actually encourage these people and educate these people to get married. Otherwise, I fear that we would probably outnumber in next future. 10 years ago, 9 years ago, there were 21,000 marriages. I'm talking about 9 years ago of the mixed marriage, or if you were interfaith marriages, and that's 9 years ago. And Islam is the fastest growing religion, and these our young girls, those who work in a society, working girls, they are meeting other faiths, other people, and there are two ways of them getting into marriage. Is a meeting them, and it's very convenient for them to say to a known faiths and non-Muslim to just spare us shame and stigma from community, and please just say that you're a Muslim, and the marriage would take place under the Muslim law, although it will be registered at the registry office. And they see that it's a part of a culture, not necessarily adopting religion or changing, and some of them now, instead of it's now converging rather than converting from one faith to the another, and they live, because they respect each other. They give space to each other, so therefore they are now increasing number, not so much in Middlesbrough, however in London, Manchester, and bigger cities, that there's more tendency towards that man. I think it's important that our community, if they want their children to stay with the culture or religion or whatever, they have to do something really quickly.
Are you aware that the government has approved of no-fault divorce?
Well, this is my specialty. I used to deal with all the issues. There are so many changes, brought up. However, the Pakistani in particular, because we have about 75% of the ethnic minority consist of the Pakistani, or more definitive would if I define it, be from Azad Kashmir, AJK community. And I don't think that this thing even enter in their mind. So this doesn't really apply to the vast majority of the ethnic minorities. There are other changes coming in marriage. If you are contracting a marriage, so I think things will continue to change. But
for worse, though, don't you think? I mean, that the government is basically just trashing marriage as a practice. They cannot show enough contempt for it, and I would have thought religious people would be aware of what they're doing.
Yeah, particularly the Pakistani, Indian, or Bangladeshi Muslim girls. This would be beneficiary to them. This would be a good thing, no fault marriage or breakdown. What happens now if you are you have done a Islamic marriage? No, that is not recognized by under the English law. So you don't have as many rights. So what then happens, that those when they won't get divorced from each other, or indeed if they are also have a dual marriage, in a sense, marrying an English registration as well as nikah, because in every marriage in UK and in Muslim household is contracted under two basically the religious ceremonies performed, as well as the British registration. So when they have a divorce, or marriage breaks down, the woman has to go and get a nikah annulled or get divorced, and this causes so much problem. And the religious Sharia councils and people, they take advantage of that situation, because when they are going to, they should come up with a solution, which I actually wrote extensively on that if marriage has ended and they are going through English law, and English divorce is finalized, the absolute decree is being taken, and their marriage is basically come to an end. So why do you need another piece of a paper which says that you are divorced? Because there is no difference between the English marriage or the British or secularist marriage than Islamic. You need to have two witnesses in each of them. You need consideration, or ring, or dowry, or what we call, and also consent from each other, and you have to be same age. So I don't think that our religious institutions are ready for this, because they extract money. I've been dealing with few.
Sorry, I don't understand. What are you saying? You're saying when a couple want a divorce, they do it through the English courts, and then you said something about a nikah. I don't quite understand how
nikah is a religious ceremony, because that is the blessing given through the Muslim imam. And what happens is considered that if you are not Islamically divorced, then you are not divorced. So there's this causes a lot of issues for girls, particularly women, because if they want to get married, they cannot get married because of this thing that
because they still haven't annulled the nikah. Is that what you mean?
That's right. That's
right.
right.
I see now. I see. So
yeah, And
And
I'm saying that why do you need a nikah? I've been, to annul because your marriage, the English marriage, has gone through the same procedure. So I think we need to change with the time. Otherwise, it will be chaos.
But the point is that the whole point of a marriage contract is so that there will be fault imputed in a divorce. So a couple marry and one of them wants a divorce. They have to say you did something wrong, and that's why I'm divorcing you. They can't just say, oh well, there's not you haven't done anything wrong, but I'd still like a divorce. That will make it make divorce even more likely to happen, wouldn't it?
Yes, but at the
So how
moment, I
can
mean,
you
if
be
if you
encouraging this?
if you look at the existing law, which now has been upgraded, you needed one ground for divorce. Okay, but you need five factors to prove that ground. Either 5 years marriage, you stay 5 years apart from each other, or 2 years with consent, or 2 years, you just leave and move out, or you have to then bring evidence that either partner was having a adulterous relationship, or the fifth one was that you are basically treating your partner really badly, and
Unreasonable behavior.
unreasonable behavior. So there were five grounds. I think this, no fault would make things better, because they've reached that stage that they are not. The marriage has broken down irretrievably. So marriage has ended now in a
But
way.
you're making it easier for people to divorce, including Muslims, and this will make their marriages unstable. If you're saying it's okay, it means that lots of Muslims will have broken marriages and have broken homes, and with all the bad stuff that you're seeing coming from the West.
I think I see it a more liberal approach now, because I've seen people, years of torture. What if you have fallen out with each other? If you don't have compatibility, you don't have a relationship, you are, or perhaps you don't want to live with that person, then I don't think that prolonging that or making it difficult makes
But then
any sense.
but then you'll have more divorces and more broken homes and children singly parented, and that will have a knock-on effect on how they perform at school and their life prospects.
Yeah.
I find it strange that you are approving of this as a Muslim.
I feel that a unhappy marriage is a better than a divorce. If it's an unhappy marriage, you should, first of all, there are mechanism in place that you for reconciliation purposes. However, I think that this part can be played by our society, our mosques, and our the local organizations. That if there is any issue, any problem, then the first call of for them would be to approach them. That is a need now, because a lot of people, if they don't have any access to this information, then there's a problem, and frustration and depression and all those things crop up. I don't think that prolonging unhappy marriage solves anything. Rather, it
But shouldn't the
adds
children
frustration.
but shouldn't the children be considered? Because I think people go through bad patches in their marriage and they can't stand each other. But in my experience, my female friends who have left their husbands, who've divorced their husbands, I don't see that they are living happier lives after they have divorced their husbands. And
can I just,
bitter
sorry,
men who feel they've been taken to the cleaners and hate women because of how unfair these rules are to them.
can I just, sorry, can I just interject, Claire? I'm a bit conscious about the time, 40 minutes past. So can we just hold on to the questions for the end? And, we can continue the discussion. Is that okay, Claire?
Yes, of course.
Okay,
Yes.
so right. So now we'll come to the second part of this seminar, which is women's rights in the Quran. Uh, okay. Women's rights in the Quran are something which is enshrined in Islam's holy scripture, and these are God-given rights. What are these rights? It is important for us to know them, to understand them, and to practice them. But here I must also stress that what goes on in Muslim societies is not necessarily what is advocated in the Quran. This is a very important point to understand. Like Brother Khan Hanif has highlighted just now, he has highlighted a lot of issues in the Muslim community. These are cultural issues. These are issues that people have, come up with by themselves. What they're doing is not necessarily the advice of the Quran. It is not necessarily the tenets of the Islamic faith. So a lot of things happen in the Muslim community that are due to the culture that is prevailing in there. The culture in Britain may have some practices. The culture in Pakistan may have some practices. The culture in Malaysia may have some practices. The culture in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Turkey, Iran, everywhere it has its own culture. So we should not understand Islam through the culture prevailing in Muslim societies. What we have to do is any study of the Islam should begin with the Quran, the Book of Islam. This is where we should begin our study about women's rights and for any other topic as well. In my presentation, what I'm going to discuss briefly is as follows. We're going to discuss what is the status of women in the Quran, what are the rights of women in the Quran, and then with regards to the rights of women. Now, I'm being very particular. I'm not going to discuss the responsibilities of women. I'm not specifically discussing any other aspect of their life, like marriage, the procedures for marriage, the procedure for divorce, and things like that. I'm going to touch upon some of the rights that can be inferred through the text of the Quran. So this is an exposition on what does the Quran say about the rights of women throughout their life. We are going to discuss women's rights, what are the rights of women through the various stages of their life. For example, what are the rights of an unborn girl child, a female who is not born yet? Does the Quran give any rights to this effect? What are the rights of an unborn girl? What are the rights of a girl child? Girls, small girls, young girls, do they have any rights in the Quran? Then, as they grow up, they become married. What are the rights of married women? Women who are married. Then, say, if the marriage doesn't work and women have a divorce, the marriage is, finished. Then what are the rights of divorced women in the Quran? Then say a woman, her husband passes away, she becomes a widow. What are the rights of widows as mentioned in the Quran? Then women also become mothers. What are the rights of mothers? As a mother, what is her right? Then, generally speaking, what are some of the economic rights that the Quran has given? So, it is in this aspect that I am going to speak today. Right now, first of all, what is the rather status of women in the Quran? How does God describe women? What status does God give women? For that, we go to Surah Al-Hujurat, chapter number 49 and verse number 13. Surah Al-Hujurat, chapter number 49 and verse number 13. Women are, according to the Quran, equal members of humanity. God says that humanity has come into existence not just by one gender, not just by men. Human beings, all humankind has come into existence through a male and a female, through the union of a male and a female. Just like humanity owes existence to a male, humanity also owes its existence to a female. So women are equal members of humanity. They are just like men are important for humanity, women are also important. This is stated clearly in the Quran. In Surah 49, chapter number 49, verse number 13. I'm just going to read this ayah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعرفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. O humankind, O mankind, God says, O mankind, verily we have created you from a single pair of a male and a female, and made you into nations and tribes, that ye may know each other, not that ye may despise each other. Verily, the most honored of you in the sight of Allah is he who is the most righteous of you, and Allah has full knowledge and is well acquainted with all things. So, the important point in this ayah is that God has created human beings from a male and a female. This is important. So, women are, according to the Quran, they are equal members of humanity. Furthermore, according to the Quran, women are not spiritually inferior to men. They have equality in terms of their spirituality. They are spiritually equal before God. They are not of a lesser spiritual worth. This is a very important point to understand, because in some religions, women are considered spiritually impure and inferior. For example, the Christians would say that Eve is responsible for the temptations of Adam. Eve is the one who led Adam, the fall, and she is the one who led because of her. But according to the Quran, women are not spiritually inferior. In chapter number 3 and verse number 35, Allah says very clearly, Sorry, I've given the reference wrongly. The verse in question is not chapter 3, verse 135. It is chapter number 3 and verse number 195. Chapter number 3 and verse number 195. Allah says, فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُمْ رَبُّهُمْ أَنِّي لَا أُضِيعُ عَمَلَ عَامِلٍ مِّنكُمْ مِنْ ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنْثَى. And their Lord had accepted of them and answered them. And God says, never will I suffer to be lost the work of any of you, be he male or female. Be ye male or female. Very clearly, the Quran says, Allah says in the Quran, God says in the Quran, that whether you are male or female, God will accept your work. So, women are not spiritually inferior to men. God accepts their work, whatever work they do, the righteous work, God accepts it. And another verse in the Quran, chapter number 33, verse number 35, it identifies the same, that women are spiritually equal to men in the Quran. And it says, chapter number 33, verse number 35. If you note the text and read it very carefully, then 33, 35, it reads, Innal Muslimina wal Muslimati, for Muslim men and women, Muslim women. Wal Mu'minina wal Mu'minati, for believing men and women. Wal Qanitina wal Qanitati, for devout men and women. Was Sadikina was Sadikati, for true men and true women. Was Sabirina was Sabirati, for men and women who are patient and constant. Wal Khashi'ina wal Khashi'ati, and for men and for women who are humble. Was Wal Mutasaddiqina wal Mutasaddiqati, for men and women who give in charity. Was Sa'imina was Sa'imati, for men and women who fast. Wal hafizina furujahum wal hafizati, for men and women who guard their chastity. Was zakirina Allah kasiran was zakirati, for men and women who engage much in God's praise. A'addallahu lahum maghfiratan wa ajran azima, for them has Allah prepared forgiveness and a great reward. All the practices of Islam that men are to do, the same practices women are to do as well. In Islam, men are required to perform as-salat, the 5 daily prayers. Women are also required to perform as-salat, the 5 daily prayers. Men are required to give zakat, a certain amount of money by way of charity to the community. Women are required also to pay the zakat. Men are required to fast during the month of Ramadan. Women are also required to fast during the month of Ramadan. Men are required to perform the Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca. Women are also required to perform Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca. Men are required to perform Umrah. Women are also required to perform. Men are to guard their modesty, to refrain from illicit behavior, promiscuous behavior. Women are also required to guard their modesty and refrain from immodest behavior. So the rules in the Quran that apply to men, roughly the same also apply to women. There are minute differences with regards to their biological makeup. There are certain rules that apply to women by virtue of their biology, by the way that their physique is, and those rules are not there for men. So in Islam, religiously, spiritually, women are equal to men, and God accepts their work. So this is the status of women that the Quran has given. Women are the equal members of humanity. Women are not spiritually inferior. Women's righteousness is equal to a man's righteousness and is acceptable to God. This is very clearly written in the Quran, and all the religious practices, all the practices that are given in Islam for men, the same are also given for women. So this is the status that the Quran has given to women. Now let us go further and see that during the life cycle of a woman, what are some of the rights that God has given to women. I would like you to open up Surah 16, chapter number 16, and verse number 58 and 59. Chapter number 16, verses 58 and 59. You see, this is a really serious issue in the world. Women are killed in great numbers before they are born. Before they are born, before they are even, given birth to, they are killed. The fetus is aborted when it is known that it is a female. This is a practice that was prevailing during the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The pagan Arabs, they used to bury their daughters alive. They used to kill the female. And this is a practice that is also prevailing today in many cultures. In South Asian cultures, in India, in Chinese culture, in China, in Pakistan, other parts of the world. If a couple comes to know that, the pregnancy is that of a girl, then they want an abortion. Let me cite to you a personal example. My little girl was born in England, in Birmingham. And, when my wife was expecting, we used to go to the hospital, NHS, Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham. And, she used to have the ultrasound. But the nurse there wouldn't tell us the gender, during the early days. And they wouldn't tell us whether it's a boy or a girl. And I was surprised. Why? What's the problem? What's the problem that, why can't a girl have if it's a girl, why can't the NHS nurses tell you that? And I was told that within the South Asian community, within Asians, British Asians, there is a very large practice of having an abortion if the pregnancy is known that it is a girl. So still the mindset is there that if it's a girl child, then couples don't want it. They want a son. This is a problem. This is a sickness. The Quran refutes this notion. The Quran very seriously, it says that a girl has the right to life. And this is very clearly paraphrased within chapter number 16 and verse number 58, in which Allah says, it's a very pressing problem. This girl that people want, they don't want sons, they want daughters. And because of that, even the population balance has been disturbed. If you find out in India, there are more men and there are less women because people don't want girls. In China, if they want a son, the couple wants a son and they don't want daughters. So there is an imbalance that is being created. There are less women of marriageable age in those societies. And God does not accept this mentality. It says chapter number 58, 16, chapter number 16, verse 58. وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى. When news is brought to one of them of the birth of a female child, ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسَوَّدًا وَهُوَ قَزِيمٌ. His face darkens and he is filled with inward grief. يَتَوَارَى مِنَ الْقَوْمِ مِنْ سُوءِ مَا بُشِّرَ بِهِ أَيُمْسِكُهُ عَلَى هُونٍ أَمْ يَدُسُّهُ فِي التُّرَابِ. When news is brought to one of them of the birth of a female child, his face darkens and he is filled with inward grief. With shame does he hide himself from his people because of the bad news he has had. Shall he retain it on sufferance and contempt or bury it in the dust? So the Quran gives the unborn girl child the right to life. This is very important. If a couple comes to know, if you are pregnant and you have a girl, don't kill that unborn child because she is a female. God is going to question you on the day of judgment if you did that. So women, a girl has the right to life. She has the right, unborn child has the right to life. And we are told in the Quran in chapter number 81, verse number 8 and 9. Chapter number 81, verse 8 and 9, a very important verse, that what will happen on the day of judgment? That those people who killed their unborn girls, who had abortions just because they came to know that she was a girl, or when she was delivered, it was known that it was a girl, then they just left the girl to die, or killed the child. God is going to question them. God is going to question you if you did that. Chapter number 81, verse 8 and 9. Allah says very clearly in the Quran. وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. When the female infant buried alive, is questioned for what crime she was killed. So a girl child who is not born, she's in the womb, she has a right. The Quran gives an unborn girl child the right to life. This is written in the Quran. And a girl child also has a right to nourishment. This is also something very important. In some cultures, just because you are a woman, you are a girl, you are female, then certain foods are forbidden to you. There are some taboos that cultures have. The pagan cultures, pagan religions, they have some taboos. They forbid food to girls. They forbid food to women. Women are not allowed to eat certain foods. They have these notions. The Quran also corrects this view. Don't do that. Don't deny nourishment to your daughters if she's a girl. Chapter number 6, verse 139. Chapter number 6, verse 139. وَقَالُوا مَا فِي بُطُونِ هَذِهِ الْأَنْعَامِ خَالِصَةٌ لِذُكُورِنَا وَمُحَرَّمٌ عَلَى أَزْوَاجِنَا. They say what is in the wombs of such and such cattle is specially reserved for food for our men and forbidden to our women. This is the pagan mindset. The mushrikeen, the mushrik mindset. They say, you men, you eat. Women don't eat. What does Allah say? And then they say, وَإِن يَكُمْ مَيْتَةً فَهُمْ فِيهِ شُرَكَاء. And if it is still born, then all have share therein. سَيَجْزِيهِمْ وَصَفَّهُمْ إِنَّهُ حَكِيمٌ أَلِيمٌ. For their false attribution of superstitions to Allah, He will soon punish them, for He is full of wisdom and knowledge. So God will punish those who are denying nourishment and food to the female gender. God says, I will punish you. Don't do that. So women have a right to nourishment. As a girl child, your children, she's a daughter, she has a right to the nourishment. Women have a right to education. They have a right to education. This is very clearly written in many verses of the Quran. We can infer that. Specifically, I'd like to quote to you chapter number 33, verse number 34. The context of this verse is that it's addressed to the women at the time of the Prophet's wife and the Prophet's household, his wives and his daughters specifically. So we know that this ruling applies to the female gender. And in chapter number 33, verse number 34, God says, God addresses women. The context is women. 33-34 says, if you check this verse, Brother Hanif, I'm hearing you sneezing. Are you having a cough or allergy?
No, I'm okay. I'm all right.
Oh.
It's just happened a bit.
Chapter number 33, verse number 34, addressed to the household of the Prophet, the women in his household. And it says, وَاذْكُرْنَا مَا يُتْلَى فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ وَالْحِكْمَةِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ لَطِيفًا خَبِيرًا. And recite what is rehearsed to you in your homes of the signs of Allah and His wisdom. For Allah understands the finest mysteries and is well acquainted with them. So women are required to remember the ayat of Allah and the hikmah. And for that, obviously, they have to be educated. They have to learn. They have to learn how to read. They have to learn how to recite. So we can infer from this that women have the right to be educated. And obviously, if they are learning the Quran, then all the sciences that are within the Quran or the rulings that are within the Quran, they have to learn that. They should know how to use the pen. They should know how to read and write. They should have certain knowledge. So women have the right to education. We come to know from the Quran. Now, women, we come to a stage, that she has passed her childhood. Now she is growing up. She's becoming a woman. She has the right to get married. A woman has the right to get married. In the Quran gives this right to women in many verses. In chapter number 4, verse number 3, for example, it reads, وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تُقْسِطُوا فِي الْيَتَامَى. If ye fear that ye shall not be able to deal justly with the orphans, فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ. Then marry women of your choice. Musna wa salasa wa ruba, 2 or 3 or 4. وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا فَوَاحِدَةً. But if you fear that you shall not be able to justly with them, then only one. أو ما ملكت أيمانكم, or one that is in the possession your right hands possess. ذَلِكَ أَدْنَى أَلَّا تَعُولُوا, that will be more suitable to prevent you from doing injustice. So God says, marry women of your choice. It's not telling the parents. This verse is not addressed to the parents. It's addressed to the men. That if you like a woman, then marry her. Marry one, marry two, marry three, marry four. It allows polygamy. But if you cannot do justice, then only one. So this is the condition. The condition of justice is there. Otherwise, be monogamous. Or marry from your right hands possess, women from a lower strata, women who are freed slave girls, for example, who are freed from tyranny and oppression, or who are working as workers in your community. They come from they're domestic workers like that. They are according to Quranic terminology, malakat aymanukum. Such women, you can also marry them. So women have the right to get married. It is a God-given right. And women also have the right to, once they are married, then they have the right to receive maintenance, to receive, to meet their expenses. They have the right to meet their expenses, living expenses. This is very clearly written in chapter number 4, verse number 34. Ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa, men are the protectors and maintainers of women. Bima fazzalallahu ba'duhum 'ala ba'd, because Allah has given the one more strength than the other. Wa bima anfaqu min amwalihim, and because they support them from their means. So women have the right to receive financial support. Married women, they have the right to receive financial support from their husbands. God has given them this right. Sadly, many fail when it comes to that. But these are the rights, these are the ideals, and we should, as Muslims, strive to meet this. Now, women, they also have, once they're married, then they have the right to protection from domestic violence and abuse. They have the right to live peacefully. Marriage does not mean it becomes a war zone, that they get abused every day or they get beaten up every day. That sort of a household is not the ideal in the Quran. The Quran is very, very clear that how a husband is to treat his wife. Once she's married, how you are to treat your wife. This is written very clearly in chapter number 4, verse number 19. Chapter number 4, verse number 19 is very clearly, it is addressed to women. This is the responsibility of women and the responsibility of men and the right of the women. We are talking about women's rights. So women have the right to a peaceful home, to an atmosphere of peace and harmony in the home, an atmosphere which is free from abuse and violence. They have this right, a God-given right given to them. Chapter number 4, ayah number 19. Is very, very important. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, O ye who believe, la yahillu lakum an tarisun nisaa karha. Ye are forbidden to inherit women against their will. You can't force a woman to get married. You can't force a woman to become your property. She's not your property. She's not something you inherit. She has the right. Marriage is a contract. You have to get married out of free will. Her will and your will. The consent. Marriage is a contract between two consenting adults in the Quran. وَلَا تَعْضُلُوهُنَّ لِتَذْهَبُوا بِبَعْضِ مَا آتَيْتُمُوهُنَّ. Nor should you treat them with harshness, that ye may take away part of the doer ye have given them. إِلَّا أَنْ يَأْتِينَا بِفَاحِشَةٍ مُبَيِّنَةٍ, except where they have been guilty of open lewdness. وَآشِرُوهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. On the contrary, how do you live with them? Live with them. Live with your wives, Allah says. وَآشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Live with them on a footing of kindness and equity. This is her right. She has the right to a harmonious household. This is a woman's right in the Quran. Live with them on a footing of kindness and equity. And فَإِن كَرَهْتُمُوهُنَّ فَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَيَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. If you take a dislike to them, if you don't like something about your wife, it may be that you dislike a thing and Allah brings about through it a great deal of good. Live with your wives in this way. This is their right. This is the right. They have the right to a peaceful and harmonious married life. A life which is free of abuse, free of violence. Chapter number 4, verse number 19. Now, let us further go to other rights of women. Women have the right, as a married woman, to enjoy any gifts that they have received from their husbands. For example, many well-off husbands, they give properties, they give land, they give jewelry, they give cash. But there is a practice, let me tell you, in Pakistan. It's called Benami transactions. What is a Benami transaction? A Benami transaction is that if you have a property, then you transfer it in your wife's name or daughter's name to avoid taxation, and you don't disclose it to tax. You are guilty of concealment. The tax authorities will catch you out. So what people do is they say, oh, my wife, will you hold this property? But it's not really yours. It's just yours legally to, avoid taxes. But then I will take it back from you. I will take it back. Quranically speaking, according to the law of the Quran, you can't do that. You can't do that. If you have given a gift to your wife, a property that you have given as a gift, you don't then take it back. You don't do the hanky-panky to avoid taxation. You don't do that. There are many, many Quranic verses. One such verse is chapter number 4, verse number 20. It says, وَإِنْ أَرَدْتُمْ إِسْتِبْدَالَ زَوْجٍ مَكَانَ زَوْجٍ وَآتَيْتُمْ إِحْدَاهُنَّ قِنْطَارًا فَلَا تَأْخُذُوا مِنْهُ شَيْئًا أَتَأْخُذُونَهُ بُهْتَانًا وَإِثْمًا مُبِينًا. But if you decide to take one wife in place of another, even if he had given the latter a whole treasure for dower, take not the least bit of it back. Would he take it by slander and a manifest wrong? So God says, even if you have given her a treasure chest, don't take anything. Don't take anything back. Given it to her, you have given it to her. It's her. If you've given it as a gift, given it as a gift. Chapter number 4, verse number 20. So women have the right to enjoy the gifts that the husband has given, and the husband does not have the right to take it back. But mind you, the practice is opposite. Many husbands, they do hanky-panky. In Pakistan, we have Benami transactions. Benami are, nameless transactions. It is the husband's property, but he transfers it to the wife just for the sake of, avoiding taxes and taxation, and then he takes it back. So this goes on. A woman has the right to work. She has the right to work if she wants to work, if the need be. She is not obligated to work. She does not have to support her family, mind you. A woman need not support her family. But God has given the right to livelihood, to earn, if the need be. If the need be, if she wants to work, she can earn and she can do that. It's in chapter number 4, verse number 32. ولا تتمنوا ما فضل الله به بعضكم على بعض للرجال نصيب مما اكتسبوا وللنساء نصيب مما اكتسبن وسل الله من فضله إن الله كان بكل شيء عليما. And in no wise covet those things in which Allah has bestowed His gifts more freely on some of you than on others. To men is allotted what they earn, and to women what they earn. So women can also earn. But ask Allah of His bounty, for Allah has full knowledge of all things. Chapter number 4, Surah Nisa, verse number 32. So women have the right to earn, to make a living, if the need be. She is not obligated to support the family. That is the man's responsibility. The husband has to provide. He's the provider of the family. If he is not doing that, he's breaking God's law. But if a woman is not doing that, she's not breaking God's law. And if she is not being paid for, if the husband is not financially supporting her, then her rights are being usurped. A woman has the right to own property as well. She has rights to property. She can own property. The Quran is very clear on that. Chapter number 24, verse number 51. It is a verse, the context is different. 24:51, chapter number 24, verse number 51. We can infer from this verse that women have the right to own their own property. As a married woman, she has a right. As a sister, she has a right. As a daughter, she has a right. She can have her own house. The Quran gives her these property rights. It reads, chapter number 24, verse number 51. It reads, let's go. I hope people are finding this Quranic lecture to be of use of knowledge. It's a study session for Quran. Chapter number 24 and verse number 51. Sorry, it's not number 24:51. 61. Sorry, it's verse number 61. Apologies. It's not 51, it's 61. It reads, Laysa alal ama harajun wala alal araji harajun wala alal marizi harajun wala ala anfusikum. It is no fault in the blind, nor in one born lame, nor in one afflicted with illness, nor in yourselves. An ta'kulu min biyutikum, that you should eat in your own houses. Listen very carefully. Listen very carefully. There's no blame on you if you eat where? In your own houses. You own a house. Then, or those of your father's house, or your mother's house. Your mother can also have a house. She has the right to own property, separate from your father. Okay? Or your sister's house, or your father's brothers, or your father's sisters, or your mother's brothers, or your mother's sisters. Chapter number 24, verse number 51. So, women have the right to their own property. It's very clear from this verse of the Quran. 24:61. Now, if she's married, things go bad, women also have the right to divorce. Women have the right to divorce. The Quran gives them this right. It's not that, once you're married, then you're married. You can't break away. You can break away. God has given this right. Quran, chapter number 2, verse number 229. Chapter number 2, verse number 229 gives women the right to divorce. It's a full verse. I will just read the relevant clause. فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا يُقِيمَا حُدُودَ اللَّهِ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمَا فِيمَا افْتَدَتْ بِهِ. There is no blame on either of them if she gives something for her freedom. So divorce is of two kinds in the Quran. One is the man divorces the woman. If he does that, what has he to do? He cannot take back the gifts, the dowry that he has given to his wife. He gives her the dowry, he gives her the maintenance, and he says, look, darling, I can't remain married. Let's have a divorce, and the divorce procedure goes through. But women can also initiate divorce according to the Quran. And to do that, what she has to do is that if she has received a marital gift, dowry from the husband, she gives that back to the husband and says, look, Assalamu alaikum, goodbye, darling, see you, I don't want to live with you. And she goes through the divorce procedure. So the Quran has given women the right to divorce. It's very clear. Women have the right to divorce. What is the procedure? Obviously, it's something different. Now, once she is undergoing divorce, let me tell you what happens, that, the home becomes a battleground. People, they hate each other. They don't want to see each other. And they try to do wrong things, bad things. They throw things at each other. They shout, they scream. And often women also get beaten up, during that period of time. The Quran actually gives rights to women undergoing divorce. She's the weaker of the two, she's weak, of the weaker sex. She has less strength. So if things are not working out and you are having a divorce, the couple is undergoing a procedure whereby divorce is happening, women have certain rights during that. Muslim women, the Quran gives. What are those rights? It's very important. I'd like to share that with you. And I also want you to know that the prevailing atmosphere, in a house, you might know this, if you know friends and families where divorces have happened, that the home becomes a battleground. People throw things at each other. They shout, they scream, they hit each other, they slap, women get beaten up. Men also get beaten up. I know cases that, the woman, she would beat her husband up really bad. God says don't do that. God says don't do that. Respect some rights of each other. What are those rights of women undergoing a divorce? I'd like to share some verses with you of the Quran. Women have the right to kind treatment while undergoing divorce. They have this right. Chapter number 2, verse 231. Chapter number 2 and verse number 231. While a woman is undergoing a divorce, she has the right to a kind treatment. She shouldn't be treated, badly. The period that, the divorce is once you have initiate divorce proceedings, a woman has to wait a certain period before the fulfillment of the divorce. And that waiting period is known as the iddat. It's called the idda. You know, the Quran says in chapter number 2, verse number 231. Please make a note of this verse. It's very important. وَإِذَا طَلَقْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ فَبَلَّغْنَ أَجَلَهُنَّ فَامْسِكُوهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أَوْ سَرِّحُوهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ وَلَا تُمْسِكُوهُنَّ ضِرَارًا لِتَعْتَدُوا وَمَنْ يَفْعَلْ ذَلِكَ فَقَدْ ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ. When ye divorce women and they fulfill the term of their idda, the waiting period, either take them back on equitable terms or set them free on equitable terms. Now, this is important, but do not take them back to injure them. Don't take them back to injure them or to take undue advantage. If anyone does that, he wrongs his own soul. So, a woman undergoing a divorce, that period of time, she has the right to an injury-free environment. She has a right to kind treatment. It's very clear in the Quran. Chapter number 2, verse 231. So quickly, I will go through further rights. Once a divorce has happened, the Quran gives the women who have been divorced, a divorced woman has the right, has the God-given right for remarriage. She has the right to remarry very clearly. This is in chapter number 2, verse 232. The Quran gives a woman the right to, for some reason in South Asian communities, Muslim communities, divorce sees as looked down upon. You know, divorce is some kind of a taboo. It's not in the Quran. If marriage doesn't work out and, then you remarry. You don't have to be a, divorcee for your life. It's not a curse. The Quran gives the divorced woman the right to remarry. This is Islam. This is the Quran. You've had a divorce, now get remarried. So the culture says some other things, God forbid. We are looking at what the Quran teaches. We have to follow the Quran. On the day of judgment, we are answerable to God for the Quran. Quran says women have the right to remarry. If she's been divorced, then she's not cursed woman. And let me tell you, in Hindu culture, there is a practice called sati. Sati is that if a woman's husband dies, she is burned, she is killed, she immolates herself, she commits suicide. Because being a widow is, so Islam doesn't say that. If your husband dies, you just wait for 4 months. The idda is 4 months. You wait for 4 months, then you can get remarried. Getting remarried, having a new husband is not anything sinful. The Quran gives women the right to remarriage, to get married again after a divorce. Chapter number 2, verse 232. It says, وَإِذَا طَلَّقْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ, when ye divorce women, فَبَلَّغْنَا أَجَلَهُنَّ, then they fulfill the term of their idda, فَلَا تَعْضُلُهُنَّ أَن يَنْكِحْنَ أَزْوَاجَهُنَّ إِذَا تَرَاضُوا بَيْنَهُمْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Do not prevent them from marrying their former husbands if they mutually agree on equitable terms. If a woman wants to marry after divorce, don't prevent her. Don't tell her, don't bring your culture, your Indian culture or your Pakistani culture or any other culture. Rubbish, nonsense. The Quran says, do not prevent them from marrying them former husbands. If they mutually agree, her consent is to be considered. She cannot be forced. There are no forced marriages. You stupid fools. What are you doing? You're following culture. This is not Islam. This is not the Quran. This is not the prophetic way. This is not how Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam taught things. You're forcing your women to get married. This is not Islam. You're preventing divorced women from getting remarried. This is not Islam. Look up the Quran, follow the Quran. Chapter number 2, Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 232. Another issue is that of after divorce, custody of children. The Quran gives the mother the custody of the child. Let me tell you also that. If she is nursing a child, while she is nursing a child, she is the custodian. She has to wean and breastfeed for 2 whole years. You know, you don't take your husband hasn't got the right to take the children from a divorced woman. You know, you grab the children, you go home. You kidnap your child. You can't do that. Many people have personal examples, you know. The husband takes the child and he flies off to Pakistan. I know. The Quran does not give this. It does not endorse this behavior. It gives the right to the mother to have the custody of the child if the child is of weaning age. If the child is of, you know, an age that it says, chapter number 2, verse 232. والوالدات يرضعن أولادهن حولين كاملين لمن أراد أن يتم الرضاعة. Mothers shall give suck to their offspring for 2 whole years. For 2 whole years. If the father desires to complete the term. And the rest of the verse says, you know, you can have a mutual consultation. But again, we can infer a law from this ayah that if the child is young, then the mother has the right to the custody of the child for 2 years to wean, to do this whole breastfeeding and weaning of the child. So she has the right to the custody of the child, according to the Quran. Furthermore, she also has the right to maintenance and residence. And because of her child, she shouldn't be harassed. There are many cases, there are many instances that women are harassed. You know, the divorce has taken, it's a very bloody, acrimonious affair. And because of the children, there is fighting going on. The father comes, he grabs the child. You know, the in-laws come, it becomes a, you know, mess. The Quran sorts it out. The Quran gives the solution. Look, this is the Quran. Follow the Quran. Follow Islam. This is what Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us. Open up the book, for heaven's sake. Don't follow your culture. Chapter, same ayah, chapter number 2, verse 232. What does it say? It says, وَعَلَى الْمَوْلُودِ لَهُ رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Upon the father is the mother's provision and their clothing according to what is acceptable. As a father, you have to feed your wife. You have to provide her clothing, food and clothing, maintenance. She has the right to do that. Chapter number 2, verse 232. So she has the right to maintenance. She has the right to residence. Again, let me give you a scenario. Divorce happens. What do? Darling, get out of this house. Get out. I don't want to see your face. Get out. Leave. People throw things on the street. I don't want to see you. That's how it happens. Forget about Muslim societies. Non-Muslims also do it this way. See it in the movies. They throw the things out on the street. What does the Quran teach the believers? This is for those who believe in the Quran. What is it that the believers are being taught? A divorced woman, if she is undergoing divorce, she has the right to residence in her husband's house during the waiting period. Now, the waiting period is of 3 occasions. 3 menstruation cycles, 3 menses, course of menses. Either that, if she's in menopause or she has an illness where she does not have the menstruation cycles, then 3 months. If she is pregnant, then the term of the pregnancy. These are the 3 situations. For 3 menstruation cycles, the divorce proceedings are happening. She has been given a divorce. Then she has to wait and live with the husband. She has the right to residence with the husband for 3 menstruation cycles or for 3 months. If she doesn't have the menses, she's in menopause or she has some illness where the menses don't happen, for 3 months. Or if she's pregnant, if she's expecting a child, for the entire duration of the pregnancy, for 9 months, she has to live with the husband in the husband's house. She has this right. You cannot throw her out of the house. The mother-in-law cannot grab her by the hair and say, Chal nikal yahan se, bhag, dafao, ja maa ke ghar. She can't do that. He can't say, go to your mom's house, go to your dad's house. You're not living with my son. But many do, because they're ignorant of the Quran. They are not following the Quran. So a woman has the right to residence while she is undergoing the waiting period of divorce. She has the right to live with her husband's house. Chapter number 65, verse number 1. Surah Talaq, chapter number 65, verse number 1. Chapter number 65, verse number 1, gives women the right to residence in their husband's home while undergoing the waiting period for divorce. It reads, it's a long verse, I'll just read the relevant portion. Chapter number 65, verse number 1. We are almost coming to the end of our lecture. Then we'll take some questions, hopefully. I do apologize, we haven't been able to stick to the time that we decided for ourselves. It reads, وَلَا تَخْرُجُوهُنَّ مِنْ while she is in the waiting period of divorce. She has the right to live with her husband's house. Chapter number 65, verse number 1. Surah Talaq, chapter number 65, verse number 1 reads, the relevant clause is, وَلَا تُخْرِجُهُنَّ مِنْ بُيُوتِهِنَّ وَلَا يَخْرُجْنَ إِلَّا أَنْ يَأْتِينَ بِفَاحِشَةٍ مُبَيِّنَةٍ وَتِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ وَمَنْ يَتَعَدَّى حُدُودَ اللَّهِ فَقَدْ ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ. and turn them not out of their houses, nor shall they themselves leave, except in case they are guilty of some open lewdness. Those are limits set by Allah. So the important clause is, while undergoing a divorce, women are to live with the husband. She cannot be thrown out of the house. She has the right to residence with her husband in the husband's home while the divorce proceedings are taking place. She also has the right to maintenance while she is having a divorce. This is chapter number 65, verse number 6. She has the right to maintenance. (65:6). Please open up chapter number 65, verse number 6. أسكنوهن من حيث سكنتم من وجدكم ولا تزاروهن لتضيقوا عليهن وإن كن أولاد حمل فانفقوا عليهن حتى يضعن حملهن فإن أرضعن لكم فآتوهن أجورهن. Very important verse. Very, very important, Very important verse. It reads, let the women live in iddat. Iddat is the waiting period of divorce. In the same style as you live. Look, so important. Imagine, you are having problems with your wife. God says, treat them in the same way. You know why? So that there can be reconciliation. God wants you to have good behavior with your wife so that if the wife has some misgivings, those misgivings go away and there is reconciliation and the marriage is saved. He orders, let the women live in the same style as you men live, according to your means. It says, annoy them not so as to restrict them. Do not annoy your wives. Do not be restrictive on your wives. And if they carry life in their wombs, then spend your substance on them until they deliver their burden. She's pregnant, pay up for her. Medicine, expenses, food, residence. If they suckle your offspring, give them their recompense. Pay them. This is Islam. This is the Quran. These are the rights. So women have rights as unborn women, as women who are not born yet, who are girls, who are in the womb. They have rights when they grow up. They have rights as a girl child. They have rights in the Quran when they get married. They have rights as married women. They have property rights. They have rights while undergoing divorce. Even after divorce, there are many other verses. I am not discussing the topic of divorce specifically. She has the right to receive alimony after divorce as well. So she has these rights. Now, what if she is a widow? Even as a widow, she has got a right. The Quran gives her the right as a widow. What is the right? As a widow, what are her rights? Chapter number 2, verse number 240. Chapter number 2, verse 240. Rights of widows. You are dead. Husband is dead. He's out of the picture. He's gone. Kaput. Now, what right does the wife have? What does the right the widow have? Chapter number 2, verse 240. reads, وَالَّذِينَ يُتَوَفَّوْنَ مِنْكُمْ وَيَذَرُّونَ أَزْوَاجًا وَصِيَّةً لِأَزْوَاجِهِمْ مَتَاعًا إِلَى الْحَوْلِ غَيْرَ إِخْرَاجٍ فَإِنْ خَرَجْنَا فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِيمَا فَعَلْنَا فِي أَنفُسِهِنَّ مِنْ مَعْرُوفٍ وَاللَّهُ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. Those of you who die and leave widows should bequeath for their widows a year's provision. What is the right of a widow? A woman whose husband dies, she has a right to a year's provision and residence. For 1 year, she has the right to live with her husband. Let me tell you another, wrong practice that is prevailing in society. Say, when the husband dies, if the husband dies, what do the in-laws do? They quickly, the mother-in-law, the sister-in-law, the family members, they quickly try to take their sons or their brother's property away from the wife, and they kick the wife out of the house. They say, go to your mother now. Now your husband is dead. Now what do you want to stay there? No. A widow, a woman whose husband has died, she has the right to stay in her husband's house for 1 year. For 1 year, according to Islamic law, according to the Quranic law, she cannot be kicked out of the house. The remaining inheritors, say if the house is under inheritance, they cannot hold on to rights of, ownership of the house like that. The wife has the right to stay with her husband's house for 1 year. She has the right to maintenance for 1 year as a widow. Chapter number 2, verse number 240. Now, women also have the right to inheritance. Now, I'm just touching upon inheritance. The Quran has given various percentages, and she has the right to inherit from her husband. She has the right to inherit from her parents. She has the right to inherit from her children. And if she is of a certain situation, she has the right to inherit from her siblings. Women have the right to inheritance. She has these economic rights. Very clearly, this is stated in many verses of the Quran. And chapter number 4. Chapter number 4. Anyway, I think we are now, quite an hour, 2 hours from our designated time. So I won't go to more verses, and I'll sum up, I'll just give references that women have the right to uh, property. This is stated very clearly in numerous verses of chapter number 4. As a mother, women have a right to kind treatment as a mother. This is stated in chapter number 19, verse number 32. A very important right of women is the right to rest during the menstruation cycle. When women have their menses, then the Quran says, then don't bother them. This is a very important thing, and the Japanese, I have come to know, they have recently introduced, menstruational rest for working women. They recognize that when women are having a menses, then they need rest. So they have passed laws. The Japanese have that, if she is having her menses, then she need not work. She can stay at home. So the Quran gives her this right. Chapter number 2, verse 222. She should rest while she is having menstruation cycle. And I'll just give the references. I won't go through the verses. Women have the right to dignity and respect and protection against defamation and slander. I'll just read this verse in English. I won't read the Arabic. Chapter number 24, verse number 4, it says, and those who launch a charge against chaste women and produce not 4 witnesses to support their allegation, flog them with 80 stripes and reject their evidence ever after. For such men are wicked transgressors. So you can't just put a false charge. You can't give bad names. You can't say a woman is of bad character. If you do that, according to Quranic law, you get 80 lashes if you don't produce witnesses. So women have the right to dignity and respect and protection against defamation and slander. They also have the right to modesty. You know what is happening in France? On the beach, if a woman does not want to wear the bikini or she wants to cover up, the police will come and they will force her. They will say, take off your clothes. Take off your clothes. They will force women to disrobe. No. God gives them right to remain modest. If they want to be modest, if they don't want to wear the bikini, if they want to cover up, God has given them this right. They have the right to modesty. Okay. Many verses of the Quran, chapter number 33, verse number 59, says, a very important verse, actually I'll paste this also on the screen, is the right to address grievances before rulers. A woman has the right to address her problems, to go to the rulers, to go to the government and, to address problems there. The Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, peace be upon him, he was the ruler of the Muslim community, And he had given Muslim women such liberty that Muslim women were able to come to him. They would present their problems to him and they can argue and debate with him. This is cited in chapter number 58, verse number 1. Allah has indeed heard and accepted the statement of the woman who pleads with thee, the address is to Prophet Muhammad, concerning her husband, and carries her complaint in prayer to Allah. And Allah always hears the argument between both sides among you. And for Allah hears and sees all things. So women were able to go to the Prophet would listen to their problems. The Prophet would address their grievances. He had given the women the liberty to argue with him. This is the prophetic example. This is the example we are to follow. Chapter number 58, verse number 1. So women have this right, the right to address, have their grievances addressed before a ruler, before the head of the community or the member of government. Women also have the right to participate in government. Chapter number 9, verse number 71. She can be a judge. She can be in a position of authority. The Quran says that believers, men and women, they both enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong. This is the job of a government. To enjoin what is right, to enforce Islamic laws, and to forbid what is wrong. And women are included in that. So she can also participate in government. She also has the right to interact with men with whom she is not related. Chapter number 60, verse number 10. Women are also very important. Women also have the right to be a stay-at-home mother. You know, some women, they say, we don't want to work. We want to stay at home. They have their reasons. They want to stay at home. The government cannot force them to work. The government cannot take their children away from them and say, look, send your child to childcare, go and work. If she wants to stay at home, be a stay-at-home mom, she has the right to do so. The Quran gives the women this right. Chapter number 33, verse number 33. Another right that they have is the right to physical pleasure during marriage. This is very important. There are some marriages where the marriage takes place, but there's no intimacy between husband and wife. The husband ignores the wife. He goes after other women. So this is, all deviation. What is this? This is deviation from the Quran. The wife has the right to sexual pleasure. Chapter number 2, verse number 187. It has been made permissible for you the night preceding the fasting to go to your wives for sexual relations. They are a clothing for you and you are clothing for them. Allah knows that you used to deceive themselves, who accepted your repentance and forgave you. So now have relations with them. Now have relations with them. She has a right to physical relations. So I'll now end my talk with just a conclusion that the Quran has given so many rights to women. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I don't have time to go through everything. I've given to you some verses. I've made a reading of verses. Okay. She has the right to life, first of all. If she's an unborn child, she shouldn't be killed. She shouldn't be thrown in the dustbin. God will question the girl buried alive on the judgment. For what sin was she killed? So she has a right as an unborn child. She has a right to nourishment, to food. Don't deprive her of that right. She has the right to education. You have to educate her. She has the right to get married of her free will. She has to have her consent. You cannot force her to get married. As a parent, you trick her, you deceive her, you get her married off to her cousin. These are the tricks that are happening in the Muslim community. You can't do that. You can't force her to get married. Now, once she's married, she has the right to maintenance. You, as a husband, have to pay for her. You have to give her residence. You have to meet her expenses. She has to do that. If she gets pregnant, you, as a husband, have to support the child. things go bad, it's coming to a divorce, she has got rights. When the divorce proceedings are taking place, she should be free, treated fairly. She cannot be kicked out of the husband's house. She has to stay with the house while the divorce is going on. If she's pregnant, during the term of the pregnancy, she has to stay with her husband. This is clearly written in black and white in the Quran. She has the right to inheritance. She can inherit from her father. She can inherit from her husband. She can inherit from her son. She can inherit from her siblings. This is written in the Quran. She has the right to own property, her own property. You know, the hanky-panky that people do, Benami transactions. To avoid taxation, they would gift a property to the wife, but only for the sake of the name, and then take it back. The Quran says, no, you can't do that. If you have given something to your wife, it's hers. You can't take it back. If she gives it to you of her own free will, that's entirely a different matter. But you cannot take back gifts that you have given to a wife. She has the right to enjoy her property in her own way. She has the right to work, the Quran says, if the need be. But she's not obligated to work. She's not obligated. She's not obligated to spend on the children. The husband is. But if the circumstances are such, she can work. The Quran allows that. So, as a divorcee, she has got rights. She cannot be thrown out of the house. She has to have good treatment. She should not be injured. She should not suffer abuse. Even if she has been divorced, the father is responsible for the child. The father is responsible, he has to give alimony to her even after divorce. There's verses in the Quran about that as well. Now, she becomes a widow. She has the right 1 year. She stays in her husband's house. She cannot be kicked out. She has to have the right to 1 year's maintenance. She has the right to her husband's property. What do the in-laws do? They play games. They send tu mar gayi hai, tera shohar mar gaya hai, your husband has died. Now you get out of the house. This is my son's house, the mother-in-law will say. This is my son's house. This is my house. These are the games that people play. This is not Quran. This is their culture and their shaitan. This is shaitan. They are following shaitan. They're not following the book of Allah. So she has these rights given to her by God. And what is happening in society is entirely a different matter. Muslim societies should not be judged by the cultures prevailing in them. We have to study the Quran. We have to act on the Quran. And once we die, we give our account to Allah. And if people don't follow, we have a duty. Our duty is, look, what I'm doing, this purpose of this talk is to fulfill this duty, to share God's message with you. Share the message of the Quran. You follow this, the Quran is there with you. You open it up, you believe in it, you act on it, well and good. You also convey the message to others. Okay? If other peoples follow, well and good. If they don't follow, what do I say? وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينَ. Upon us is only the delivery of the message. My job is only to deliver the message to you. Please, you also do that. Take up the Quran, open up these verses, make your family members read this. Make your friends read this. Tell them this is what the Quran teaches. Share the ayat of Allah. Share the message of the Quran with those around you. Time is short. We are going to die. I don't know. Death is around the corner. Corona is there. So many problems. You can die tomorrow. So give your account to Allah. Repent before Allah. Repent before God. Acknowledge that life is very short. Try to do your best. Try to do your best. I'm not saying there are not problems. There are problems in all families. Problems in my family. There are problems in all cultures, friends. Our job is just to share the message to the best of our ability. So with these verses, I would like to end the talk. If there are any questions, any comments, you are welcome to please come to the mic. And if there are any, so thank you very much. Are there any questions?
I don't know if you mentioned the wife beating verse. Did you?
No, I didn't mention that. Chapter number 4, verse number 34. What is your question regarding that?
Well, I suppose people who know a little about Islam will say, oh, there is a verse that allows husbands to beat wives. So they would be thinking about that, and also chapter 2, verse 282, about a woman's word being worth only half that of a man's. I tell people it only applies to loan agreements, but some people say it applies for all testimony in court.
Okay, now with regards to chapter number 4, verse number 34, in Islamic scholarship, there are also alternate views regarding that. First of all, the Arabic word there is azribu hunna. Azribu literally means strike, to strike. And it has been used in the Quran in a physical sense as well as a metaphorical sense. If one does a word search of the word dharaba, then they will come to know that in what context the Quran has used this. The Quran has also used this in the context of to explain, to propound, to give an example, to teach, in that sense as well. And there are alternate readings of that verse as well. Number one. Okay, that is one thing. Secondly, there are also views that says that the verse refers to domestic discipline, not domestic violence. There's a difference between domestic discipline and domestic violence. What is domestic violence? Domestic violence is something that happens in many societies and cultures, including British society and culture. Now, you have people who beat their wives. You have Lord Sachi. He was in the news. He strangulated his wife. What's her name? The cook. I was reading it in the
Yes, Nigella Lawson. Yes.
Nigella Lawson. Okay, what did he do? He beat her up in public. He strangulated her. So this is domestic violence. This is domestic violence, and it happens. How does it happen? It happens, when people are emotional. What the Quran verse chapter number 434 says, it's a procedure. It gives steps. Secondly, there are interpretations which say that this is not applicable to the husband, it's applicable to the courts. The court says, separate them with the beds, explain them, separate them, then admonish them. And then, go for the verse number 35 says, go for arbitration between the family. So the answer that I'm giving is that, what are these? These are Islamophobes. Who say, you have a wife beating verse, Muslims mistreat their wife. What are you saying? Non-Muslims don't do that? You are telling me your people don't beat their wives? There's no domestic violence amongst non-Muslim communities. What rubbish, what nonsense you are saying. You have all this with them as well. Okay,
Yeah.
They get drunk and they beat each other up. So in Muslim society, Muslims don't read the Quran and start beating their wives. It doesn't happen that way. I have read the Quran and now I'm beating my wife. So this is number one. There are alternate readings which say, which interpret that verse differently. Number two, there are interpretations which say it's applicable to the courts. The courts administer those punishments. Number three, that this verse is about domestic discipline, which is consensual. So it says that the husband is the authority for the household, like you have an organization, you have a chief executive. One person has the authority. So husband is the breadwinner. So he has that authority, and the wife has to accept that consensually. It's not by force. He's not forcing her. So husband and wife, they mutually agree that, look, the husband is, things outside the house. The husband looks after those things. Matters inside the house, the cooking and the cleaning and the children, the wife's job is there. So that's how they decide their own roles. Okay,
Yes.
in that context.
Yes.
And life is harmonious. Let me tell you, life is harmonious that way. When you have a situation where the husband also wants, to enforce his will, and the wife also wants to enforce her will, what will happen? A clash. A clash of two battling minds. No, this is not how marriage happens. Marriage is consent, and one person agrees to the other.
Yes.
I agree to my wife. Her choice how she decorates the house, I won't interfere. Her choice how she cooks, I won't interfere. Okay, so I have to give liberty to my wife in something. She also has to accept. my authority in some way or another. So that's how things work. Okay. Now, husband and wife relations is a different topic. It's a very, inshallah, if God wills, I will give a talk on that. We'll go through a reading of Quranic verses. But with regards to 434, this was my response. With regards to women's testimony, there is a verse in the Quran, first of all, chapter number 2, verse 282. It's in the context of commercial transactions. In commercial transactions, have two women witnesses and not one. You know why?
Because they're very complicated.
Because in some societies, women are not educated. In many societies, women are illiterate. They don't know how to read or write. So if that situation is there, then you need another two witnesses to ratify the testimony, to solidify the testimony.
Yes.
The Quran also says have two men. What does that mean? Are two men mentally inferior? No. The law, you are a legal somebody, law, you have studied law. So why do you need two witnesses when you are having an agreement?
For corroboration.
Yes, to consolidate the evidence. And there are also verses in the Quran, for example, Surah 24, where one woman's testimony is equal to that of the man. For example, if a husband accuses the wife of wrongdoing, then he invokes the curse of Allah upon himself. But the punishment will be averted from the wife if she invokes the curse of Allah that if she's false, then so be it, that she's speaking the truth. So in that verse, in chapter number 24, we see that one woman's testimony is equal to one man's testimony. So this accusation on Islam, when it's in Islam, a woman's testimony is half of that a man, is rubbish, nonsense. They have not read the Quran. The Quran says two men are needed. It says two women. It also says two men. They don't talk about that. The Quran says one woman versus one man. They don't talk about that. So this is all Islamophobia, Christian missionaries and Islamobobs, they do this propaganda. But we read the Quran entirely, the clarity comes to us.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. You're welcome. Okay. So with this, Brother Hanif, do you wish to add anything?
I want to say a few words. I think it's for some reason it's coming back to me. I'm hitting myself back. Hello.
Yes. Yeah.
It's basically echoing, so I can't enjoy it.
You have two windows open. Maybe do you have a computer as well as a phone?
No.
Can you check there are two windows open, because your own voice will then echo. I can see two of your windows open. So can you please check your computer or phone? Yeah, now you are one. Hello, can you see me? I think we've lost him.
Oh, well.
Hang on, he's back.
I do appreciate. Oh, it's again now. I can't see. So it's too much echo coming now for some reason.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but what I'm saying, it's coming loud. Oh yeah, I think it's better now. Right. Basically, what I want to say was that the Quran has given a liberty. It was revolutionized the rights of women, women's emancipation, women's rights, women's had a status she never enjoyed pre-Islam. There's no doubt about that. Islam gave so much rights to women. However, in today's society, all those rights you are talking about are given in a society. So In fact, some of the rights are even addition to what the Quran gives, and or more, I would say. So I was reading, Iqbal, one of the philosophers, and I can read just few words. He says that the prophetic method of teaching, according to Shah Waliullah, is that generally speaking, the law revealed by prophet takes special notice of the habit, ways, and peculiarities of people to whom he is specifically sent. The prophet who aims at all embracing principles, however, can neither reveal different principles for different people nor leaves them to work out their own rules of conduct. His method is to train one particular people and to use them as a nucleus for the building of a universal Sharia. So, what he's trying to say is this: the time of the revelation of a Quran, the Arabs were given superior code of conduct dealing with rights of women. Okay, however, now the society we live in, a different society, they have a different rules, different methods and everything. So therefore those rules were, although they're still applicable, however, in different society, different setting, you can develop another law which can be in a way uh, complement that. So, you have any comments on that? What I've just said so far?
Uh, yes, actually, Quranic laws are a blend of permanence and change. Quran is supreme law. Okay, you have the Quran as supreme law.
Mhm.
This is the supreme book. In the light of this book, we can make bylaws. We can make laws according to the needs of the time, but they have to be in the light of the Quran. They have to be in the light of the prophetic tradition. These laws are, they are bylaws. And these laws are not permanent. They can be changed according to the needs of the time. These laws are jurisprudence. These are jurisprudence. And this is what fiqh is. Fiqh. You may have heard fiqh. So fiqh is not permanent. New fiqh can be developed as new situations. Like you have the fiqh of coronavirus. So knowledgeable Muslims can come together. They can see the laws in the Quran. They can see the laws as the Prophet, peace be upon him, practice, and in the light of that, they can deduce and introduce new laws according to the need of the time. But those laws are not permanent. If the situation changes, then those bylaws also change. So Islamic law is a blend of permanence and change. These laws of the Quran are immutable. Quran says, "Wala taqrabu zina," do not go near adultery. Now, you cannot say that, look, times have changed, now adultery should be legal. You can't do that. This is a permanent law of the Quran. Don't go near adultery. Okay, so now what methods of adultery are there? Those methods may be different, but you can introduce bylaws. You can introduce jurisprudence, make laws according to the needs of the time, put your heads together. So yes, and Muslims have been doing that. Even according to fiqh, I've been dealing with Islamic scholars relating to Islamic marketing. I was appointed the chairperson of Islamic Marketing Association Pakistan branch, and so many news fiqh is being done. So we shouldn't reject all this, that look, they are Maulvis and mullahs and what do they know. No, we should benefit from the knowledge and the research. We should also do all that. We should be in touch with Islamic scholars. Every Islamic scholar is not a mullah. What is an Islamic scholar? Who has learned the Islamic sciences, who has learned the Quran, who knows the language, who has the skills. So we have Islamic scholars from a very wide breadth spectrum in the world: Pakistan, Turkey, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, mashallah, there's a wealth of knowledge. And what you have touched upon, what Allama Iqbal also said, was the same thing, that there is the supreme law, the law revealed by God, and then there are circumstances of the time. Those circumstances keep changing. In the light of the revealed law, we can introduce, you have shura, majlis shura, you can have parliament as majlis shura, you can have all that. So but mind you, I am not saying support for secular democracy. No. Secularism, don't fall on for that. Islam and secular democracy, all that, you introduce the Western democracy model. What is Western democracy? Western democracy is parliament is the absolute. There is no law that the parliament cannot make. There is no law that the parliament cannot break. Parliament has the absolute authority. So all the criminals who get into the parliament, they rule you. This is not Islam. In Islam, there is an absolute. That absolute is the revealed law of Allah. God is the absolute sovereign. God's words have the final say, the final authority. The Qur'an is the supreme law. Parliament cannot abrogate the Quran. Parliament can make laws consistent with the Quran in the light of the needs of the time, but parliament cannot abrogate a ruling of the Quran. So Quran is absolute. Allah is our sovereign. We submit to him. We surrender to him. We have to give our account to him when we die. So this is Islam. In Islam, at the absolute, the sovereignty is with Allah through his revealed law, through his revealed words. He is the sovereign. We submit and surrender to him. In Western democracy, sovereignty is with the parliament. If the parliament says homosexuality is okay, it's okay. If the parliament says, bestiality is okay, sex with animals is okay, it's okay. If the parliament says, you can discriminate against a certain community, it is okay. So whatever the passions are in the society, prevailing passions of society, and those are represented through the parliament, those passions become the rule. So, it's a shirk, it's a form of shirk. If you are doing that, if you are legislating against the law of Allah, you are making, all that.
If you allow me, what I actually meant was only pertaining to women's rights. For instance, my wife and I, we've been married for 40 years, and I have a brother and a family, and she has equal right now with me. She has 50% of the property I have. So if we follow the rulings of the Quran, that my parents or my family could only allow her for 1 year living in the house and then kick her out. So you're just giving her 1 year, and she is the one who lived all my life. She's my wife. And similarly, now things are changing. Girls now, all the girls are not choosing to marry, some of them. So if we follow the dictate of the Quran, which we are saying that they'll get 1/2 of that of a male, then that doesn't seem equitable. It doesn't seem that women is not discriminated. I was talking in that sense. So what Iqbal has said in the words of Shah Waliullah, that the Prophet made these rulings, or these rulings were revealed by God for a particular society of that time. But if we live in a different society, and they make laws and rules according to what they think fit for the society, not abandoning Quran, not abandoning the law, immutable laws, permanent laws. In that sense, I was talking.
Okay, now, Brother Hanif, this is a very important point that you have raised. Let me give you a background. Okay. Let me give you a background. In Britain, now Claire is also a legal expert. She has studied in law. She has also has a political background. She has been with the BNP, a very naughty party, devilish party, I know, but she has left them, coming more close to Islam. Alhamdulillah, she's our sister. But she has legal knowledge, and she can also tell you more about the British law, what is happening in Britain. Your property, or a Muslim man who has property in Britain, he should leave an Islamic will on his property, because if he doesn't, you may know this, a very sizable portion will go under inheritance tax. Okay, now correct me if I'm wrong. A significant portion, I don't know, 30% or what, you may know this better, Clay
I
would know this
understand
better,
this because this
would
is
go.
my legal background as well. I
Yes.
understand all that.
Okay, now, when you leave an Islamic will, those are there. Secondly, there is also an option. There is one thing which is inheritance. Inheritance applies when person has died. The other thing is, to avoid that, is to gift your property while you are alive. To gift it to your wife, according to your own situation or need. The Quran also allows that. Okay, you can make a will, that you can give a gift, you can make a will, that is also allowed by the Quran. You can give a gift, that is also allowed by the Quran. Now what happens is that many people, and it has happened in my family in America also, I have had uncles who passed away, and they I know of situations in Britain as well, that people, they passed away but they did not leave an Islamic will. What happened? The state came, the government came, and they took up a sizable share. And
I know, but I
what
think it's not knowing the law. You can actually have make a will and a trust, and they won't take it away. So there are other remedies, not necessarily the Islamic will you're talking about. Yeah.
And in Dubai, for example, let me tell you what happens in Dubai. Okay, in Dubai, if you are a Muslim, say a British Muslim, Pakistani Muslim, you own property in Dubai, Sharia law applies. Your property will not be entertained by any means. They will distribute, they will say, this is the law of the Quran, we distribute it according to that. If you have, otherwise, you have to go through your embassy and declare yourself a non-Muslim and have a will made according to your country's laws, and then apply it to your property. Then they will entertain you. But if you are a Muslim,
So
they
you're
say,
not allowed. You're not allowed. You are allowed to make a will there, but they won't act upon that.
I am not sure.
No,
I'm
no,
not sure.
I know. Same in
Yes.
Pakistan. You can make a will, but
Yes.
you can only do 1/3 of the will you
Yes.
will inherit.
Yes. Yes.
You
Why
see,
is that? Why is that?
this is
Because of,
against the law. This is against the Quranic teaching.
no,
Quran
no, no,
tells
no.
you, no, it is. I have understanding that Quran tells you can make a will, whatever will you want to make. Okay. However, if you don't make a will and you die, then it's distributed according to what the law dictates in that country. This is my understanding is,
Yeah.
because I've been dealing with these things with people's problems and all that. So I have an in-depth knowledge about Pakistan law, and also my brother, my son lives in Dubai, and I go there, and he's a lawyer, so I know about this. I was specifically talking about that there are certain rulings, certain laws which gives you more right in modern society. We have excelled, we have done better in some instance what Quran allows us. I'm not saying that I'm talking about this society, not the society in certain Muslim countries. The Islam gives you more right according to their traditions or the way they are living. But I'm talking about Britain and societies where women will have an equal right, children will have an equal right, whereas Islam or Sharia as is practiced in Pakistan or Muslim countries doesn't give you that right. So this is what the specific point I was making.
No, no, that is not. No, Sharia does give you that. The Quran also gives you something usable as well. So this is a topic, obviously,
Okay.
for further discussion
Yes,
and
yes, yes.
exploration. So we'll look into that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
On that note, I'd like to
Thank
end
you very
our
much. It's
session.
been nice talking to you.
Thank brother. And I would like to thank Claire. I would like to thank all of you who joined us. Thank you for being here. And this topic is very relevant, important, and it requires study, contemplation, absorption, and also implementation on our part as Muslims. So do look into the Quran, do open up the Quran, do check the ayats of the Quran, and study the rights that Allah has given to women, and strive to implement them in your families, in your households, in your society, to the best of your ability. Thank you very much. I would just like to end now with a short prayer. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.